The story is told from the point of view of a woman. Not long ago, my 5-year-old son and I moved into a new apartment. No, we didn't buy it, because nowadays it's incredibly hard, if not downright impossible, for an ordinary person to just go and buy an apartment. I found a decent place to rent. And no, this isn't gonna be one of those stories where you immediately hear about some ridiculously cheap, suspicious deal. The rent was actually quite high, but there were no other options, nothing even close. I was looking for a place that would be convenient for my son to get to school, and for me to get to work. We used to live in my ex-husband's apartment, but that buster left me and our child for some young college girl who just bled him dry, and not only his money. So what could I do? I took my son and, for a while, we lived with my mother. Thanks to that, I was able to get back on my feet, find a decent job, and start earning some modest but decent enough money. My name is Tatiana, and this is my scary story. It began on the ill-fated day when I packed all our things, said goodbye to my mother, and took my son to our new home. The landlady, whom I'd already met when we signed the lease, greeted us warmly. She was a woman of about 50, very kind and welcoming. I noticed that right away, the first time we met. There was something about her. She radiated positivity, warmth. You could just tell she had a really good aura. We hit it off immediately, and it honestly felt like we'd known each other for decades. We walked into the apartment, and the taxi driver helped carry our few but rather heavy bags up to the 3rd floor. "Hello, Tanechka. So happy to see you," she said cheerfully. "Hi, Seryoja." She immediately turned to my son, helped him take off his coat, and then, still smiling, asked, "How was the trip?" "Oh, fine," I replied. "We just had to ask the driver to help carry the bags up." "Oh, of course. Have you even looked at yourself? Skin and bones. You should eat better." "You're right," I laughed. "Listen, Tanya. I did a bit of tidying up. Vacuumed. Wiped the dust. Just so you'd feel at home right away when you arrived." "That's so nice of you," I smiled. "Well then, I suppose I'll be on my way." "Oh, come on. Stay for a cup of tea at least. It's cold outside, you need to warm up a bit." "Well, you're right, Tanya. I'll put the kettle on, make yourself comfortable." "Thanks," she replied with a smile, and my son and I went into the bedroom. We left the bags there, and my boy immediately started playing with his toys, while I went to the kitchen to join the landlady. "Here I am," I said, standing in the doorway, which startled her a little. She was fiddling with the stove, trying to light a burner. "Oh my, you scared me," she exclaimed. "This old heart of mine could have just stopped." "I'm so sorry," I said, trying not to laugh. "Olga Stepanovna," I continued, "could you tell me a bit more about this apartment?" She turned to me. "What exactly do you want to know?" "Well, it's history. Did anything happen here?" "Oh, the history," she said thoughtfully. "My grandfather was given this apartment back in Soviet times, before everything fell apart. We lived here then. I spent my whole childhood in this place. Then came the collapse, privatization, and all that. My grandfather passed away, but in the hospital, not here, so don't worry about that," she added. "I see," I said quietly, lowering my eyes. "And where is your husband?" "My husband?" she repeated. "Yeah. It's been about 5 years since he passed," she finally said. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." "It's alright, Tanyusha. Really, it's fine. People are born and people die, that's just how it is." Then she suddenly called out, cutting the conversation short. "Seryoza, come have some tea." "I don't want to," came his voice from the bedroom. "Well, suit yourself. Tanya, everything here is good. Just leave and don't worry about a thing," she said warmly. Then she glanced at her watch. "Oh, we've been chatting too long. I'd better get going." "All right," I said with a smile, and we walked her to the door. "Here, take my card," she said, handing it to me. "So I won't bother you. You can just transfer the rent here. And if you ever get lonely, give me a call. We'll figure something out," she added with a little smile. "Okay," I said, and closed the door behind her. The rest of that day was spent unpacking, settling in, putting things on shelves, cooking, and making a trip to the store. By evening, I was completely exhausted and collapsed on the couch, scrolling through social media. After playing with his toys for a while, Seryozha fell asleep. That's when I suddenly felt an overwhelming craving for tea. I set my phone down on the couch and went to the kitchen. It was already dark outside. The only lights in the blackness were the glowing windows of nearby buildings and the little bulbs above the building entrances. I put the kettle on the stove, lit the gas, and stood by the window, waiting for it to whistle. Our windows faced the front of the building, so from here you could see the entrance, the courtyard with its crumbling benches, and the old playground with a slide, swings, and a huge sandbox. Earlier in the day, kids had been running and laughing there while their parents scolded them for getting too wild. But now, in the dark, the rusting swings creaked as they moved, the sound grating sharply in my ears. They looked almost, sinister. The playground was directly opposite our entrance, so I had a clear view of it. The light above the doorway cast a dim yellow glow over everything. The kettle's shrill whistle startled me out of my thoughts. I quickly turned off the gas. No way was I going to risk waking Seryozha, made my tea, and went back to the living room. I switched off the kitchen light, sat down, and buried myself back in my phone. But then a sound from outside pulled me out of it. I turned my head toward the window. I recognized the sound immediately and knew exactly where it was coming from. The swings. The swings were creaking, as if someone was on them, rocking back and forth. Nobody had oiled those things in God knows how many years. I'd heard that sound earlier today when we arrived. I knew it well. Maybe it was just the wind? The weather had been gloomy all day, after all. Probably the wind had picked up and was making the swing move, I reassured myself and went back to my scrolling. But then, when that creaking went on for nearly half an hour straight, it really started to get on my nerves. I got up, opened the balcony door, and was completely stunned to realize there was no wind outside at all. Weird, Then where the hell was that creaking coming from? I leaned out to look. The swings weren't moving, and the sound seemed to have stopped altogether. Very strange. Maybe some dumb kids were running around, trying to mess with people. Then again, it was almost midnight. Although these days, late doesn't mean much to kids and teenagers anymore. I shrugged it off, went back to the bedroom, made the bed, and headed toward the shower. But just as I stepped into the hallway, the creak came again. "Oh, you just wait till I catch you, you little punks," I muttered, threw on my jacket and ran down to the entrance. Maybe last time they heard me open the window and ran off. This time I was determined. I was already halfway down to the first floor, ready to catch them and give them a piece of my mind. But when I got outside, there was no one there. "What the hell is this?" I said under my breath, turned around, and started climbing back upstairs. But before I even reached my floor, I heard it again. "God, it's so annoying," I groaned. "Like a damn mosquito buzzing around your room at night." I went back down, made it to the first floor, peeked out the door, and this time, I saw the swing moving. There was someone on the playground. I immediately decided it was just some stupid teenagers. So I stepped outside, ready to tell them off. But as soon as I opened my mouth, I froze in fear. There, among the swings, stood something huge. At first I thought it was just a very tall man. But when I really looked, oh God, there's a slide on that playground, about 2.5 meters tall, and this thing was standing behind it and still taller by a head. I couldn't make out any clothes, no shoes either. It was just a gray shape with arms and legs, a shape that made my skin crawl, that made every hair in my body stand on end. But that wasn't even the worst part. When it started to move, the way it moved, it shook me so badly I almost collapsed on the spot, about to faint. But no, I held on. I stood there, behind the entrance door, staring at it. At that thing out there on the playground. It didn't see me, and yet I couldn't look away. Something inside me burned with a horrible curiosity to understand what it was and what it was doing. But just watching it move, even just the way it shifted and walked, filled me with dread. And with each passing second I wanted more and more to just run home and lock the door. It wandered around the playground, swaying the swings back and forth, making that same sound that had dragged me out here in the first place. Finally, I decided it'd be better to keep watching from my own balcony, or at least from behind the window, and I slowly began climbing the stairs back to my apartment. I opened the door and stepped back into the apartment. I glanced out at the playground, and it was still there. Without thinking much, I pulled out my phone, planning to film it on video. And that's when everything went to hell. I turned on the camera, and not only did I still see it with my own eyes, but on the screen, it didn't show up at all. A lump instantly formed in my throat, and it became hard to breathe. But my biggest mistake was hitting record. And then the flash went off. That caught its attention. I froze on the spot, hoping, praying it hadn't noticed me. But oh, how wrong I was. Out of the corner of my eye I saw it turn its head toward me, and it felt like its gaze crawled straight into my soul. I felt sick. It was as if my legs just stopped working. I collapsed to the floor, but I could still hear it perfectly. The sound of it moving closer. And then, silence. I lifted my head, and it was right there, pressed up against the balcony glass. In less than 3 seconds it had closed the distance. And now, I could really see it. It was horrifying. It had nothing but small black bead-like eyes and an enormous mouth. It was running its long bony fingers over the window, making this awful scraping sound. To say I was gripped by a kind of primal animal terror I'd never felt before in my life. That doesn't even come close. Oh God, if only you could have seen its fingers. That's a whole separate nightmare. Each finger had 10, maybe more phalanges, colored a sickly brownish gray. He dragged those fingers across the glass, staring me dead in the eyes. And all I wanted was to get away from that look as fast as humanly possible. I yanked open the balcony door, ran into the room, and, to my shock, it vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. I ran straight into my son's room. "Seryoza, wake up, we have to go." "Where, Mom?" "We're going to Grandma's, get up quick." By now tears were streaming down my face. I didn't know what to do with myself after what I just seen. Come on baby, faster." I started throwing clothes on as I moved around the room. "To Grandma's, Mom." Yes, sweetheart, we have to." "Why are you crying?" "Me? Oh no, it just seems that way. Everything's fine." I forced a fake smile. And then I said to him, "Alright, stand here in the hallway, and I'll just grab my bag." "Okay, Mom." I went back into the room to grab at least the essentials. Money, documents, whatever I could. And then I heard the doorbell. And right after that, "Mom, I'll get it." "No, baby, don't open the door, do you hear me?" But it was already too late. He loved to run and open the door for my friend when we were still staying at her place. She lived the floor above us and used to drop by every evening for tea. We'd sit around chatting, too lazy to get up, and we'd send him to open the door instead. And that habit played a cruel trick on him now, because he opened the door this time too. But it wasn't my friend standing there. It was that creature, the one I'd been unlucky enough to see at the playground. It was standing just a meter from the door. Its head jerked back and forth, left and right, with these fast, twitchy movements. And in a flash, it grabbed my child. He let out a pitiful scream. I lunged for him, but I was too late. The creature placed its massive limb on Seryoza's head, and with a single motion, twisted it 180 degrees, with a sickening crunch, so his face ended up on the back of his neck. His scream stopped. His little body fell to the floor, and I broke. I collapsed next to him, screaming, pounding the floor with my fists, and he just stood there, watching me suffer. It was enjoying it, but why wasn't it touching me? Why didn't anyone hear my screams? Not a single neighbor. No one. Why are you just standing there? You bastard, come here. Take me. What's wrong, huh? Too scared? At my words, the creature lifted my son, twisted its grotesque face into a horrible grin, and threw his limp body at me. It knocked me over. By the time I could even catch my breath, it was already gone. I sat there in the hallway and sobbed bitterly. He was lying right next to me, his head twisted, his little face staring straight at me. It was already starting to get light outside. By then I could feel myself losing my mind. I see it everywhere now. That creature, leading my son away by the hand somewhere far, far away. Of course, evil always takes the souls of the innocent, right? Why would they need us, the adults? The sun was already rising over the horizon. I've written everything down here. Mama, I'm sorry. I hope you find this and read it. I'm going to throw this notebook out the window now. And I mustn't forget to turn on the gas. I don't want to live in this world anymore.